video, I just wanted to discuss a little bit more about why and how I became a holistic esthetician as far as diet is concerned. So, I ended up having a bunch of problems like with my stomach and my gut. Like my family has a bunch of acid reflux in our family background history. And so I noticed that things like onion and garlic and other things were affecting my diet. It was causing my skin to itch, my scalp to have breakouts and things like that. So before I became vegan and plant-based like I am today and have been for the last 2 years, I started an elimination diet back in, I want to say 2018. Actually, it was in 2017. I started doing detoxes. So I replaced a bunch of my meals every day with smoothies, and I was still eating certain foods that I probably shouldn't have been eating. But I did start with the smoothies. So I did a detox with teas and some smoothies. And this is before, like, I knew about a lot of homeopathic things and about like natural stuff, but I was still definitely partaking in a lot of unhealthy foods. But I did start with removing a lot of foods and replacing them with the meal of a smoothie, right? So that was great. I ended up actually losing, I want to say like 40 pounds because I went from weighing about 170 pounds to 130 because in around 2015, 2016, I got a health scare, and that led me to realizing like, okay, hey, you've got to do some things better here. And I ended up having to take like a bunch of antibiotics, and I just knew I didn't want to be the person who always, or not always, because I actually shunned like medication off and on throughout my life. I always wasn't a firm believer on being someone who had to be prescribed, prescription medication all the time to take care of whatever health need or necessity that was going on to keep symptoms at bay. So the diet was the big one. So I cut off bread when I started my elimination diet. No bread. Stopped eating a bunch of pasta and stuff like that. And I saw a huge difference. Not just in my weight, like instantly I lost my whole muffin, had a muffin top, right? So you can see those pictures. You'll probably see a lot of them off and on just from social media, but also from the video that I made the other day. And I started walking a lot too. So I was going actually into my esthetician program. So it was almost like perfect timing. And so I would walk to school some days instead of, drive or catch the bus or whatever the case was at that time. And so I lost, like I said, I weighed about 175, and I ended up by the middle or the summer of 2018. So not even a full year later. I had a completely flat stomach and had lost about 40 pounds. I weighed about 130. But the biggest portion of that wasn't just the weight loss and how I looked and felt. It was how, I was feeling internally. Like I pretty much no longer had any need for any antacids, right? Because of that acid reflux, which was both genetic, but I realized like was not a genetic thing. It was really my diet. I was eating things that it was internally causing me gas and influx, right? Because my body was saying no to these foods. So sometimes your body is screaming out and trying to tell you the foods and the things that are bothering them. And ultimately it would also show itself in your skin. So when you're someone who suffers from chronic skin conditions, I know you go to the doctor, the dermatologist, and they're like, well, this is something you're going to have to put up with for the rest of your life. But I'm here to tell you that there's so many different ways, cost-effective ways at that, and things that you don't have to do and take internally that may, upset other parts of your life. And it's your diet, because your diet ultimately can be the best part of your life, can be like the rebuilding factor of your whole system, your whole body, but it can also be the thing that breaks down your body, that causes disease, that causes infection, and can cause, chronic illness and even death, right? So be careful what you eat. Be careful what you eat and start with an elimination diet if you just can't just jump off in a whim. I know being plant-based and vegan is not for everyone, although, I'm going to always promote that. Be vegan, be plant-based. It's probably one of the best decisions that I've ever made for myself and for my family. So just start off with getting rid of those ingredients, getting rid of those maybe seasonings, like I said, garlic powder, onion powder. So it wasn't just like the vegetables, it was, the seasonings that I was using. So being careful, reading the ingredients, and the things that are inside of your food, and making sure that they are not something that's going to upset your stomach, which will ultimately upset your skin. Okay, because your large intestines, they are constantly doing the work. They're trying to break down everything that you're eating, and if they can't break it down, it's going to erupt and it's going to show its ugly head in your skin, right? No one wants to have acne, no one wants to have dermatitis. You don't want to deal with these things for the rest of your life. So being mindful about the food that you eat, will ultimately change your whole outlook. It changed my whole mentality. It reconnected me with the Most High God, and so my spirituality changed. The relationships that I had with others changed. This journey lasted me several years until I got to where I am now. And it's still an ongoing journey. So there's no final resting place. I'm going to always keep evolving, and I hope that you join me on my journey to evolving, and that you evolve and become your better self for yourself and for your family and those that you meet in the community, because ultimately the food that you eat is not only going to affect just your skin, but it's going to affect the way you feel about yourself, the way you hold conversations, and the way you have relationships and build relationships with other people. So definitely do a double take, check in with yourself, and see if you're eating the foods that you're supposed to be eating, and how they're making you feel. So start journaling those things. And one of my next videos will be speaking to you about, and showing you about the holistic skincare journal, which is a part of the holistic skin experience. And inside that journal, there is places for you to document the foods that you're eating, and the ingredients and how they make you feel. Because ultimately, trying to isolate those things and figure out what is causing your scalp to itch, your skin to itch, you to have breakouts. Yes, it can be stress, but a lot of times it's the food you eat, and it won't always show up a day or two later. It sometimes takes 48 to 72 hours before something you eat can show up, in that retrospect. So just be mindful about the food that you eat, guys. Take care of yourself. Be happy, be healthy, and I will see you at the Holistic Skin Spa. So please subscribe today, join my channel, and become a part of the Intuitive Cosmic family, because over here we're trying to be promoting healthiness and happiness and wellness, and be filled with joy. Amen.